How did this get carried out then in school? As you went to school, were you politically active in elementary school? By that I mean, were you conscious of talking about issues in your community with your school colleagues?
Not so much. I'm not conscious of that. I had some wonderful teachers that really got us talking in class about political issues and got us thinking, and I remember that more. I mean, I remember that the headmaster of the grade school I went to was very much into making sure his students knew about what was going on. So I was aware of that. I can't remember of a particular instance. And then when I went on to high school, I had a wonderful history teacher who was into making us think about issues and thinking about how ancient history ties into current history. And one exam she gave us, which consisted of a single line, which is the existence of a nation is a daily plebiscite, and that was it. That was the exam, and you had to write for 2 hours. And I thought, that just stimulated me and excited me. So.
You still have that essay?
Probably. I am a saver. I'll have to go looking for it, Lynn.
When did you decide, well, obviously it was after Eisenhower, when did you decide you were going to change your party label?
About the time I went off to college. It was a radical professor that, you know how they say, how universities are the...
That's right.
Yeah, but I had wanted to go to Bard College, which was a wonderful experimental college of Columbia University up on the Hudson. And my parents had said, no way, you can't go to that radical school. I think they didn't know what would happen. So I said, okay. And then the headmistress said, well, maybe you should go to Barnard, dear. And I said, no, I'm not going to Barnard. I'm going to Sweetbriar, which was for me, it was just the total rebellion. Okay, you won't let me go to some intellectual college in the East, I'm going to go to a Southern college. And so I went to a women's college for 3 years, and turned out it was great. I mean, the classes were wonderful. They were small. You got to know your professors. I began rebelling after a while because I'd always gone to a girls' school. I began rebelling. It was the best thing, though, for me, girls' education, single sex, was excellent, because then I could be as my competitive best and didn't have to worry about the boys. And when you go to a co-ed school and you really like boys, then sometimes you don't compete as much as you should when you're that age. So that was very good. But then I was still conflicted. Was I going to grow up and get college degree, get married, raise my husband's kids, or was I going to be my own person? And I really didn't resolve that until after I moved to Michigan.
You were self-consciously rehearsing those questions.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But I really never had, I never had the courage then to say, okay, I'm not going to get married. I'm going to go on to graduate school and I'm going to do my thing. And I really didn't have the courage to do that. So I got married and after my third year at Sweetbriar and transferred to George Washington University and got my degree from George Washington, because my husband was finishing up his last year at Episcopal Theological Seminary in Virginia. So that's what I did. But I was aware that there was this conflict, this turmoil going on, so that like when Betty Friedan wrote her book, it was like, yes, I know exactly what you're saying, and that's what I'm struggling with. So,
what was the impact of moving east? Was that did you find yourself involved then more in political activity or in community activity?
No, I didn't really get involved then because I was finishing college, and Irv was finishing school, and when we moved to Flint, and then soon after we moved to Flint, that's when we both got involved.
When was that?
That was in 1958. 1958. So by the 60s, we were into civil rights kinds of things and into political campaigns.
Now, did your husband share those values?
Those were things we truly shared. The sense of the need for social justice, the things that were wrong, the need to organize and do something about it. And we definitely, that was one thing we definitely shared.
Did you get your undergraduate degree in social work?
No, I got my undergraduate degree in political science. So that interest has always been there. And then the social work I went back to social work school after, after all three kids were born.
Why social work then?
Well, I knew I didn't want to teach because I had taught as a college student. I taught on the Navajo reservation, and they put me in charge of a class of Navajo who spoke no English, and I didn't speak any Navajo, and it was a disaster. So I decided I definitely wasn't set up to be a teacher. But again, I wasn't, and I knew I wanted to do something that made a difference. Although I worried, because I was back in the time of the Great Society, and I thought, my God, I'll graduate, and there won't be any jobs because we will have solved everything. But God, I wish I were still back there, but it's not true. So, and you know, when I think back on it now, probably if I really had the courage, I would have, you know, not gotten married, have gone to grad school, maybe gone to law school. Just because that gives you a lot of tools, not because I love lawyers, as you know, necessarily, and they're always wonderful. But the one I'm married to now is, but
yes,
but they're not, yeah, but they're not by nature. But it just gives you wonderful tools, and so, or I've gotten a combination of social work law degree would have been also. I've recommended that to a lot of young women that's a great combination to have because it gives you both sides of the tool to make interventions and make a difference. But no, I decided I wanted to go into social work because that would give me the opportunity to do some of the things that I had been wanting to do. And I went back to school just about the same time that I got involved in the state Democratic Party. So it all sort of happened at the same time.
Give me a year.
Well, let's see. I ran for recording secretary in the state Democratic Party in 1967. And in 68, I went back to social work school. Yeah. So, and then the University of Michigan was willing to let me go part-time and then full-time, part-time. So that enabled me to work for the state party and also go to school and take care of my kids. And it was also about that time that my marriage was dissolving, so you had to juggle all of that.
What did you think you would do with that social work degree? You were working on an
I wasn't really
MSW.
sure. I knew I wanted to get into something that made a social impact, and I specialized in administration and policy. I didn't, and because I didn't think I could go into the inner city having small kids, so I didn't want to do community, the community organizing. But you get a lot of community organizing. So I knew I wanted to do something out of the, not in group work, not in casework. I wanted to do something that would go out. I like what Saul Alinsky did, so I wanted to figure out, how. I didn't know how it would take shape. I didn't probably at that moment realize it would mean that I would spend a lot of my life in political activities, but that's a wonderful way to try to make a difference in terms of the system. And how do you change the system? And that's why you end up getting into politics.
So your focus was really a policy
Absolutely.
focus, not so much a clinical.
Yeah, my focus was on policy and how do you change the policy, and how do you as an administrator make a difference that can help change the policy. Exactly.